Hi, I'm Andrea Anthony, and you're watching Eat, Drink, and Bake with Andrea. Today, I have a Mexican feast planned for us. We're starting with shrimp quesadillas with a pineapple salsa and caramelized onions, and we move on to Mexican rice. And for dessert, we have Tres Leches Cake, and I'm introducing an amazing new tequila called Montaukila, and we're gonna make a great margarita. So let's get rolling. Our first recipe, shrimp quesadillas. Now there's a lot of levels to this recipe and a lot of ingredients. So let's break it down and start with our shrimp. First of all, we're using medium-sized shrimp. It's about 45 to 50 per pound. And what we've done is we've cut them in 3 slices each so that they sort of distribute well within the quesadilla and they're easier to eat. Also, we're going to flavor them with cilantro. We have some chili powder, cumin, fresh lime, a little bit of olive oil, and garlic. We're going to marinate that a bit and put them in the refrigerator for about an hour. They don't need to marinate long, especially when you're using a citrus. It will actually cook the seafood, so you don't want it to be in there too long as you would with meat. Just about an hour. Now, our pineapple salsa, all these fresh ingredients here, we start out with fresh pineapple, and I want to point out that pineapple has a lot of juice in it. So I wouldn't put that in the food processor. That I hand chop. So it's kind of important to do it that way, and you still are going to have juice left over. So what you do is you chop it, put it in a strainer, and reserve the juice, and you'll see later what we're going to use this for. We also have red bell pepper. We have our red onions, fresh jalapeno, chopped, some cilantro, our lime, and some fresh garlic. So that will be our salsa component. And then of course we have a Monterey Jack Cheese and our flour tortillas. And what's beautiful about this dish and the great flavor component, the caramelized onions. Adds a really nice sweetness to the dish. We have the tart salsa, we have the sweet caramelized onions, we have the cheese. It all really meshes so well together, and we're gonna garnish it with some sour cream on the side. So it's just a great dish. A lot of ingredients, but let's get going on the marinade. All right, so we're gonna put our shrimp in a bowl here, and we're adding our olive oil. I've used a Spanish olive oil for this dish. Give that a little toss. Okay, our fresh garlic, chopped. Cilantro adds just a great flavor. Okay, and we have our cumin, chili powder. Gonna add a little salt, a little pepper, and our lime. Okay, I'm just gonna squeeze that right in there. Great, so let's give that a toss. Okay, so we're tossing everything nicely so it's well coated. And now all we'll do is we're gonna pop it in the refrigerator for about 1 hour. We'll be right back. Our shrimp is marinating, and while that's happening, we're gonna start the onions. Now these take about 30 minutes because we want them nice, brown, and caramelized. So let's go over to the oven and we'll get that going. Our caramelized onions, very simple, and 3 basic ingredients. So let's get our olive oil in the pan. I'm gonna turn that down a little bit. And butter. Butter helps to brown the onions, so that's really important. We use both. I'm using Spanish olive oil again. Butter and some olive oil. Now my onions have been chopped, rough chopped, and we're gonna put those right in there. And you can hear them sizzling. And a little bit of our turbinado sugar, and that's gonna help them brown. It's a great part to the dish. It really provides just enough sweetness to mesh with everything, and the flavors are just amazing. So let's let this brown up a little bit, and we'll come back and check in a few minutes. So we're tossing these up a little bit, and they still have some more time to go. So while these are cooking, why don't we start our pineapple salsa? Fresh pineapple salsa. All right, let's start with our chopped pineapple. Incidentally, you really could substitute mango. You can use fresh mango, pineapple, either one works. Okay, we have our red onions, which have been chopped, and all of these ingredients are chopped nice and fine chop, a dice. Okay, we want those all to kind of mesh in well. We don't want big chunks in a recipe like this. So we have our red peppers we're adding, and the colors are just amazing. All right, and some fresh garlic. And now some of our lime. Fresh lime juice adds a nice kick to it. Also helps to keep our vegetables looking nice and bright. All right, so we got that mixed pretty well. Let's just add a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. Okay, so with this dish, what we want to really do is let it marinate as well so that the flavors all kind of blend together. So we're going to put that in the refrigerator, and then we're going to go back and check our onions. These onions are doing well. You can see that they're browning nicely. We're almost there. Now, important to kind of toss them around. Make sure that you have an even distribution of heat here. You know, we have them on the sides. Some might not be browning, so important to sort of toss it all together. And I'm going to say we have about 5 more minutes, and then we should be good to go. Those onions are looking good. See how nice and brown? They're done. They're nice and caramelized, sweet. So what we're going to do is we're going to take them off the flame, let them cool a bit, and then we're going to start our shrimp. So let's get our shrimp going. We're going to put a little bit of olive oil in our pan. It's been marinating for about an hour. And we're going to toss that right in there. Now this will cook quickly, but it's important that you keep stirring as you cook because we want to make sure we get to all the shrimp. You can see it's all translucent. We're looking for a nice opaque pink color when we know it's done. So we're tossing, tossing, tossing. Can't really let this sit too long. You want to make sure it all cooks evenly, so you have to kind of stay with it. So we're going to keep moving that around in our pan, adjusting our heat. And keep a little extra olive oil on hand, in case you need it. You can hear that sear going, and that's really what we're trying to do. All the flavors have combined. It's just a great dish. Shrimp has terrific flavor. It's a great balance of ingredients. You're going to love it. Can't wait to assemble them. All right, we're going to continue stirring it up a bit. It takes about 3 to 5 minutes to cook our shrimp. So we'll be back in a few minutes, and then it will be time to assemble our quesadillas. It's been about 4 minutes, and our shrimp are looking good. So we're going to shut our flame, and we're going to get ourselves ready to start the quesadillas. We have everything ready to go. I'm just going to add a little bit of salt and pepper here to our onions. Okay, so let's recap. We have our caramelized onions, we have our shrimp that's been marinated and sauteed, and we have our Monterey Jack cheese. And of course, quesadillas, flour tortillas. So let's give that a little spray. On goes the tortilla, and then we're going to take some of our caramelized onions. Now what we want to do is kind of spread them toward the edges because you want it to totally cover the tortilla so that each bite has enough onion. So we have that in there. Okay, and then we're putting a full cup of cheese, and that's our Monterey Jack shredded. I'm going to just kind of even that out. And next goes our shrimp. Now you can see why we cut them, because the big chunks would sort of be hard when you're biting into it. So we want to keep the bite size like so, and then the top goes on. Most important part, the press. Any pot would work that fits the circumference of your flour tortilla. So we're going to let that brown just a little bit. Not for long. It takes about, you got to watch it, maybe 30 seconds, 45 seconds. We're going to take a peek to make sure it doesn't get too brown. A lot of it depends on your stove. You know, in this case, we're on a medium flame. But I see it smoking, so I'm going to take a little peek. We don't want that to get too brown. And yeah, we are ready to flip. Now let's try that once and over. Use a large spatula so you can get right under there, and we wouldn't want to be any more brown than that. This helps to press our ingredients down and melt the cheese. So you can tell the flame's a little high, so I'm going to lower that just a bit. And again, they really don't take long to cook. All the ingredients are cooked. It's really just a matter of melting the cheese. Okay, so let me take a little peek now. Okay, you can see our cheese is melting nicely. And now it's just a matter of checking. And if any of the ingredients fall out, just tuck it right back in there. Okay, let me take a little peek. All right, we are looking good. So on our plate it goes. Now, when you're making batches, as we would be, you can keep them in the oven at about 200 degrees, okay? But for our purposes right now, we're gonna put this aside and we're gonna make one more. So here's our quesadilla, ready for slicing. And we're gonna slice it like a pizza. Okay, beautiful. You can hear that crisp. We have our melted cheese, caramelized onions, and our shrimp. Just a really, really flavorful dish. And you know, this is the kind of meal that you really can have for either lunch or dinner. Extremely versatile. And we have the sour cream, and sliced avocados work really well. And there you have it. Shrimp quesadilla with pineapple salsa, little avocado on the side, and we have our sour cream. It's just absolutely a wonderful dish. And now we're ready for our Mexican rice. But first, just a little point here. We want to rinse our rice, and we're using long grain rice. We're gonna rinse it a little bit, and that helps to cut down the starch, and it makes the rice much more fluffy. So let's go to the sink, we're gonna rinse it off a bit, and then we're going back to the stove. For the Mexican rice, we're gonna start first with some olive oil in our pan. And we're going to add our garlic and onions. I'm going to brown them up just a little bit. And while that's happening, I'll point out that we did rinse our rice. It's drained and it's ready to put in our pan as soon as that's just a little bit brown. Okay, time for the rice. We're going to put that right on top. Now we're just going to stir it for about a minute or so, tossing it with the olive oil and the garlic and the onions. And we're looking for a slight golden hue on our rice. Now, if we didn't rinse it, it would really be clumping together at this point. So you can really see the difference when you rinse rice and you get the extra starch off it. It makes for a much better rice dish. So we're going to let that just get a little bit golden, and then we go on to the rest of our ingredients. So we're looking a little golden here, and that kind of imparts a nutty flavor to the rice. So it's an important part of the dish to saute it up a little bit and get it a little bit brown. Now we're ready for the rest of our ingredients. Putting our chopped tomatoes in, our chicken stock, cumin, and just a touch of saffron. All right, now we're going to add a little salt, a little pepper. We're going to bring it up to a boil, and then we're going to reduce the heat, cover, and simmer for about 20 minutes until it's nice and fluffy. Our rice has been cooking for about 20 minutes, and it is perfectly done. You can see how fluffy it is when we move our spoon around. It hasn't stuck together, it's not starchy, nice and fluffy, and that's the way we want it. So let's get over to our island and we're gonna put our rice in our bowl and give it a little bit of a garnish. It has a great orange hue, and we're gonna kind of give it that little bit of garnish on top, which is fresh chopped cilantro. Adds a nice contrast, it's a great dish, and it goes so well with our quesadillas. So the Tres Leches Cake is done in phases. So let's start the first phase, which is our sugar, our egg yolks. Now, let me mention that we had 5 eggs and we separated them. We have our yolks and we have our egg whites, which will be dealt with in a few minutes. But to start, I want to also mention that eggs at room temperature whip the best. So you want to have your eggs nice and warm, take them out of the refrigerator before you get ready to use them. So let's get the cake part going. First thing that's going in our mixer are the egg yolks. All right. And then to that, we're adding our white sugar and vanilla. Now, we want to whip this until it's nice, light, and fluffy. So let's start that going. Okay. We're looking for a pale yellow color, and we know it's finished. Light and fluffy, pale color. Okay, I'm going to give it a little bit of a scrape on the sides of the bowl. Now I can actually feel the granulated sugar. I know it's not finished yet. So just gave it a little bit of a scrape, and we're going to continue whipping. We're looking for the sugar to dissolve in with our egg yolk mixture. Coming along, see it getting fluffy. You'll see it actually increase in volume. You know it's coming along well. Okay, let's check it out. Because essentially this is a sponge cake recipe, so it's very important that all of your ingredients are whipped very well, and when we get to the flour part, everything has to be mixed evenly. So if you take a look at this color, you see how it's pale and it's very creamy. You can see the texture of that, so we know we're good on that. Okay. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to put that aside for a moment, and we're going to clean up a little bit, and we're going to whip our egg whites. We have our egg sugar mixture put aside. Now, you'll notice I'm using a hand mixer. We're keeping the egg yolks in the original mixing bowl so that we don't have to clean that out and start over again. So we have another bowl for egg whites, and we're going to have 3 bowls for the different ingredients that go in. So let's start our egg whites whipping. Okay, now I want to point out that we're at a point where these are soft peaks. That would be different than stiffly beaten egg whites. When they're stiffly beaten, you could literally turn your bowl over and the egg whites won't come out. Okay, so in this recipe, we're looking for soft peaks, which looks like this. So that part is done. We're going to put that over here. And now for our dry ingredients. So we have our flour, we have some kosher salt, and we have our baking powder. Just give that a little bit of a whisk to combine those ingredients. And now we're ready. So this is the cake part, the sponge cake. Now I'm going to use my original bowl where we had our sugar and our egg yolks. And what we're going to do is we're going to little by little fold the egg whites. And when I say fold, you're going to use a rubber spatula and you bring your ingredients around and over. Okay, so it's sort of like a flipping motion, and that's what we call folding. So we're folding the egg whites in to the egg mixture very carefully. It's a delicate batter, so you have to be very careful. Okay, we're looking good. Now for the dry ingredients. Once again, we're going to fold and do this in three steps as well. 3 additions. So we have our flour and we're just folding it in. You want to make sure you scrape the sides of the bowl so that none of the flour is sticking. We're well blended. We're looking good. That's what your batter should look like. Now we're using a 9x13 baking dish. Our oven is preheated at 350 degrees. And we're just going to spoon that right in there. Okay, I like to just give it a little tap. Okay, so we're nice and even. It's a good time to start our whipped cream. Now our bowl has been chilled, as was our beaters, and of course our heavy cream. So we're going to put our heavy cream in. And we have some powdered sugar and vanilla. Okay, so let's get that going. Starting slowly. So we're whipping air into our cream. You can see the air bubbles forming, which means it's well on the way. First part's always the messiest, so try to use the deepest bowl that you have. Okay. Now when you see it starting to thicken in the middle, what you want to do is just stop your mixer and give it a scrape. You want to combine all of that. Okay, because it will thicken in the middle before it does on the sides. So. Okay, we are good. Now you have to be a little bit careful with whipped cream. If you whip it too much, you'll have butter. So you got to keep a real eye on that when it starts to thicken. And you're looking for nice peaks. That's what it should be like. Okay, so you can see that consistency. Now what we're going to do is we're going to chill this a bit in our refrigerator. And we'll go check on our cake. It's been in there for about 12, 13 minutes. Let's check. Okay, I can see it cooking nicely, but we are going to rotate it 180 degrees to ensure that it's cooking evenly on all sides. Our cake is finished. It's nice and delicate and spongy. And what we have to do next, the most important part of this recipe, is to let it cool completely. Once it's cooled completely, we go on to the Tres Leches part of the cake, and then we'll finish it off. Now we're ready for the Tres Leches part of the cake, and we have 3 milks here. Now I will point out that we have evaporated milk, sweetened condensed milk. Most recipes call for whole milk. I'm using heavy cream. It gives it a little bit more richness. So what we're going to do at this point is mix our 3 milks together, which is pretty much the body of the cake. That's what it's all about. But very important that the cake is cold. Heavy cream and evaporated milk. Okay, so let's just whisk those together a bit. We'll mix this until it's evenly combined and smooth. Good. You can feel it with your whisk, that the consistency is even all around, and then you know it's mixed well together. You'll actually feel thick parts in the milk, which is your sweetened condensed milk. You want to make sure that that's well blended. Okay, and we're looking good. Now the other thing you're going to need is a toothpick, a skewer, something pointy, because what we're going to do is we're going to actually just make little indents, little holes in the cake, so that when we pour our milk over, it's going to absorb all around the cake. And you're going to see it pool on the sides and on the bottom. It's perfectly fine, because the next stop is in the refrigerator. We need it to completely chill, and we need all the milk to be absorbed. We want to start slowly so we can sort of absorb in. So at this point, We're going to put it in the refrigerator, and it's going to take a good few hours for everything to absorb. And you know what? If you have overnight, that's okay too. Put it in the refrigerator and let it get nice and chilled. And after that, that's when we put the whipped cream on, and that's our last step. So let's get this refrigerated, and we'll be back soon. Our cake is completely cooled, and now it's time for the best part. Now you can see how everything's been absorbed into the cake, nice and moist. And we're just going to put that whipped cream right on top and spread it around. Okay. And we're just going to spread that over to the edges. A whole lot of richness going on over here. Okay. And that's it. Tres Leches Cake. So we have our Mexican feast. We had our shrimp quesadillas made with caramelized onions, and we had our pineapple salsa and our Mexican rice. We ended off with a Tres Leches Cake. Now, what the best part of this meal is time for a Montaukila Margarita, my favorite part. So let's get going. So now for our Montaukila Margarita. Let's start by salting our glass. You want to hold that upside down and move your lime on the rim. And we have some kosher salt. I'm going to dip that right in there, salt it nicely. And in goes our ice. Okay. Montaukila. We have Cointreau. Some agave, just for a little bit of sweetness. We have our fresh lime juice, and we're going to top it off with some fresh pineapple juice. Now this was the reserve from the pineapple that we chopped for our salsa. It adds a nice, fresh flavor. Oh my God. That is absolutely wonderful, and the perfect way to end a Mexican meal. Cheers, until next time. I want to tell you about a new tequila, born on the east end of Long Island, New York, in Montauk, referred to by the locals as the End. Montauk has its roots in Native American history, named after the tribe, the Montaukets. And throughout time, Montauk evolved from a sleepy town with fishing and farming community to a worldwide, one-of-a-kind destination. Montaukila was created to be the perfect spirit to enhance the Montauk experience and all that it represents. Montaukila is a unique tequila, smooth, light, and fragrant, worthy of the Montauk name. Montaukila is certified 100% blue agave tequila, crafted in one of Mexico's most decorated and award-winning distilleries. Taste the beginning and enjoy the end all year round. When it's time for that margarita on the beach type feeling, it's time for Montaukila.